Hey y'all, as you can see, it's just me by myself. It's going to probably be like this a lot. Mike is away at a school security officer training this week, and then he will start back at the school as their school security officer on Monday. So he will only be here late afternoon, if at all. So you get me. I hope that's okay with y'all. We talked a little bit on Wednesday, and it was just me and Linda Hart, but we talked a little bit on Wednesday, and I told her that for whatever reason, the Lord has put before me several times the saying or the phrase, but God. But God. With all things are impossible, but God. For God. Not for God. I mean, all things are impossible, but with God, we can do all things. So that phrase has just been put in front of me no less than 15 times probably in the past month, 2 months. So I decided I really didn't have a plan for today. I'd been praying all morning, and then my morning kind of got hectic. I locked myself out of the church and locked Stella in the office, had to break in the office. Billy came to my rescue and let me back in the church, but it's been a morning. So my thoughts were too scattered to really put it all into something. So I decided to go with but God, because I know with him, I know as long as I'm following him, he's going to give me the words that I need. So I printed off some things because that's how I do. When I research, I got to get in there. I got to print things because I need to read it. I need to hold it. I need to see it. But God doesn't just redeem us for himself. He redeems our stories for himself. God is a redeemer, and he redeems all things offered to him. What the enemy means for evil, to steal, kill, and destroy our faith, our families, friendships, and more, God intends for good. So Joseph declared this. He's the one that stated that. And Joseph's story is a magnificent story, because it shows how God works. Just like Mike talked yesterday about Elijah being in the cave. Had Elijah not gone to the cave, things would have been done faster. But because Elijah decided to go to the cave and hide, but God was still able to come to the same resolution that he wanted. It took a little bit longer. So Joseph, following God through all of his life and all of the hardships that he went through. He had been thrown in a pit. He'd been sold as a slave, taken from everything he knew and loved, separated from his family for decades, wrongly accused despite his honesty, hard work and integrity, wrongly imprisoned and left in prison despite his hard work and innocence. Through all of it, Joseph could say to his brothers, could say that his brothers intended to harm him, but God intended for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. And in Genesis 50, it talks about Joseph reassures his brothers. And it's in verse 14 that I'm going to start. After burying Jacob, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had accompanied him to his father's burial. But now that his father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. Who put that fear in them? The enemy. Because the enemy was able to use his brothers for so long, and they allowed him to use them. They allowed him to do the things that they did to their brother. He put that in them, and they allowed that. And that's one thing that Mike preached about yesterday. We have to allow the enemy to use us, and we need to be very careful in that, because the enemy can use us, whether it's a spirit of rebellion, it's a spirit of jealousy, it's a spirit of bitterness, anger, whatever it is, we're allowing the enemy to use us with that spirit. So we need to be really, really careful and get free from that and be redeemed of that, and just let that go. Sometimes that's hard. It's so hard to just lay it down and let it go, because we want to pick it back up. And mine is the bitter. I'm struggling with bitterness. I'm always honest with you. I'm struggling with some bitterness, and I think I let it go, but then something happens and actions haven't changed, even though apologies have been made, actions haven't changed, it's hard not to hold on to that bitterness. But I'm learning, and God is working through me. So they sent this message to Joseph. Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, please forgive your brothers for the great wrong they did you, for their sin in treating you so cruelly. So we, the servants of God, of your father, beg you to forgive our sin. When Joseph received the message, he broke down and wept. He broke down and wept. I feel like he broke down and wept because they were finally admitting what they did. Sometimes that's hard to do when we have to admit our fault and we have to own our stuff. It's hard on the other person too that you're apologizing to or admitting you're wrong to. But he broke down and he wept. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. Look, we are your slaves, they said. But Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I a God that can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for all good. But God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so that I could save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children. So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. But God intended what you tried to do to me, is he's telling them, and he turned it to good. What an amazing testimony that is, just to be able to say that in front of the people that harmed you so badly, and to say it in a kind manner and not have anger and bitterness and all of that. But God, that's the reason he didn't have any of that, because he knew everything that he went through brought him to that place that he currently was, saving the lives of so many people. God allowed those things to happen to him in order to get him to this position, in order to get him to where he can save the lives of so many people. So Joseph and his brothers and their families continued to live in Egypt. Joseph lived to the age of 110. He lived to see 3 generations of descendants of his son Ephraim, and he lived to see the birth of the children of Manasseh, son Machir, whom he claimed as his own. Soon I will die, Joseph told his brothers. But God will surely come to help you and lead you out of this land of Egypt. So again, he's reassuring them, I'm going to die, but God is going to come and he's going to lead you out of this land. I'm sorry, that's my phone, and it kind of shocked me. But he reassured his family that even though he was going to die, God was still going to be there for him. That he wasn't the only reason that God was there, that he was there for their families as well. And that is such a big thing. When we live our life and we live our life for Jesus, our family sees that, and that legacy lives on. When people see you go through a hard time and they're like, wow, I wish I had that faith, and you can say, but God intended all of these things to come up against me, and he turned it to good. We just have to hold on to that, and we just have to keep focusing on God and focusing on what he has for us. There's many times I've wanted to give up lately. Many times, just give up. Say, I'm done. I'm done. But God has come along and he has reassured me every single time. I have you right where I need you. And you need to keep and stay the course. You're exactly where I placed you. Know that I will walk with you and trust me in this process. And that's what I've been doing. I've been trusting Jesus. I don't see, I prayed and I prayed and I was like, just give me a glimmer of the story, just a glimmer so I can see it. But I don't need that glimmer. I just need to focus on him and know that, but God intended the things that are coming up against me to harm me, he will change those for good. And I'm holding on to that today. And I hope that you will too. This week, we may continue to talk about the verses about but God, or the Lord may lay something totally different on my heart. But I hope that you all have had a good last day of July. It's hard to believe we're already here. We're already at the end of July. Time just flies, you know. It seems like just yesterday we were planning this 2-week boys camp, the young warrior camp. But we were just in the planning stages of it, and now it's over. And what a lasting impression that has left on me. I only got to see them at lunch and breakfast and lunch, but to see those boys now in our church active, that's pretty exciting to see. So, men, remember tonight you will not have men's group. It's been changed to Tuesday night, so you will meet tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And we will have youth as regular. Buses will run normal times, 6 and 7. We will be feeding you. I think you guys are actually going to have the fish that you guys caught when you went fishing. So that's what will be on the menu for Wednesday. Ladies, we will meet at 10:30 Wednesday morning. I hope that you can come out and join us. I would love to see our group grow. I think God has great things that he wants done in this church. And we as women need to gather together and encourage one another and encourage the body of this church and pray for this church. I feel like that's our job, is to be the prayer warriors of this church right now. So I pray that you will just come out and join us on Wednesdays at 10:30 or Sundays at 6. We didn't have it last night because we went to Freedom Church for Fifth Sunday Sing, and boy, what a time it was. A great word was brought by Michael Clark, and our praise team, well, they just knocked it out of the park. They're amazing, and we are so blessed to have this group together as our praise team. They are anointed, and what a blessing they were. And they just did a great job. And the food and the fellowship were amazing. Ben and his church, they put it all out there for us, and it was great. And I'm so thankful for that we can go and do things like that with other churches. So, and the next Fifth Sunday will be in October. It's October the 29th. So that will be the next one. I'm not sure where it's going to be at yet. So we'll let you know more about that. So stay cool this week. It looks like it's going to be a hot, hot week. So stay cool. Check on your pets. Check on your neighbors. Check on those that may not have air conditioning. Stay hydrated. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Come back and see me tomorrow. I hope to be on all week long. I'm not making any guarantees, but I hope to be on all week long. You guys have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.